Welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with tonight's episode or today's episode, whichever time you're listening to it, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to see other stuff from the shadows, I'm getting thrown off here. I'm hearing something outside the office. It's my stepdaughter. Just said something. But we're going to leave that in. Just so you know, I am not a professional, in case you wonder. So I just want to remind everybody that if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us at From the Shadows Podcast on Facebook, or our forum page, After the Shadows. You can find me at Shane Grove Author on Instagram. And if you just want to go everywhere that's From the Shadows, go to our website, FromTheShadowsPodcast.com. There's links to everything, including TikTok. I do not dance on any TikTok videos, as far as you guys know. You can find our Patreon page. You can do all kinds of things from there. So with that being said, we have a ton of great fans that are regular listeners to the show. And I always encourage everybody, if you have a story or you have an experience, to reach out to us. You can do it through the website. You could do it through Instagram, Facebook, and somebody listened to me. Somebody actually did what I asked. And joining us is one of our, and I know she's a fan, Lindsay from Idaho is on the program tonight, and she has got, from lack of a better term, some crazy stories from her time on a certain property that she grew up, 7-8 year period, I think it is, sort of. Is that about right?
I was probably early 90s, so I was a little baby.
Little baby? Yeah, so quite a few years that you grew up on this property, and just lots of crazy stuff. So I don't want to waste any more time. Nobody wants to listen to me anyway. So Lindsay, why don't you describe like where this land is as best you can without giving it away. And then kind of let's get into what was going on this property that affected you and your family.
Okay. So Idaho, I know it's a whole state. We only have 2 big areas around here where people can actually connect to. The Twin Falls is where I live, but where I grew up with is south from here. A very small town. I think when we moved there, it was about 300 people. Our farm was about 187 acres. It got handed down from my grandpa to my mom and my dad. And we just kind of flourished from there. My dad was from California, so was my mom. So when they moved here, the farm life was all new to them, everything. So they had to kind of start from the bottom up. My grandpa got horses and farm hands, everything out on this property. The house is from, I do believe, like mid 1800s, late 1800s. Very good sized house, just huge. And everything that we had there is like we moved from inside Twin out to there. So from the beginning, because I kind of have to do a set to before we move there for it to make sense to people later down the road. My grandpa had a farmhand out there, and I can't say his name because, again, small town, way too many people know what I'm talking about. Him and his wife were out there for many years before we got there in probably early 90s. And I remember my dad and mom going out there and showing us where we're going to move. And going into the house, it was very, very dark. Like, this house probably has over 20 windows in it. And it's a farmhouse, so they're not small windows. They're anywhere between 4 foot to like 5x5 bay windows. And every one of them was blacked out. And I was just like, this is kind of weird, And this is like the 90s, so like the curtains were like those little plastic pull down ones, like almost rubbery. So it would like completely black out your window. It had the little circle on the string, you would pull it down, and there was no sunlight getting through there. And they're on multiple windows. All of these had that. If not, they had these dark yellow mustard colored curtains that were blacking out that whole entire house. And as soon as we got in there, our parents actually asked us to leave because the wife would sit in the kitchen. And the kitchen was not very big. There was like a stove, our countertop, and then behind that was the fridge, and left was the sink. And she would just sit in this one spot in the kitchen, like right in the corner nook of the kitchen, and just kind of stare off. She didn't say hi to us. She didn't introduce herself. The farmhand was like, hey, you know, this is going to be your future house. Kind of showed us around. We were little kids. We were excited because it was huge. We came from a smaller house. And we come back out, and I remember asking my mom, like, why isn't that lady talking to us? And I remember her just having this, like, dark look in her eyes, like, get out of my house kind of look. And so my dad and everybody kind of pushed us out. We walked around the farmland. And I remember the farm hand turning and being like, hey, this orchard of trees, you guys can play in them, because there was probably 20 or 30 from apricot, pear, apple, plum, everything you can imagine. This orchard was huge. And then behind it was this huge windbreak of trees. And I don't know if a lot of people know what that means, but it's literally just stacked up pine trees that is literally called a windbreak. And that's what it does. It breaks the wind from hitting like your farmland, your animals. And it was over 100 years old, very thick and dense. And I remember him being like, hey, you can't go out there at night. You guys need to stay inside. He was just kind of giving us a warning, like, don't go mess around out here at night. You know, I know you're curious, you're going to be curious, but he said coyotes were out there and sometimes they could get a little aggressive. And so I'm just like a little kid. I'm like, whatever, dude. You know, never been on a farm in my life, didn't care. But I was also scared because I didn't know what a coyote was. And our family gets adjusted, and my grandpa's having to tell them to leave. And the gal that was his wife was not having it. She was not happy that she had to leave the house. She freaked out, caused a huge deal over it, and they finally were able to get her to leave. And she insisted on moving only a quarter of a mile from her farmhouse in this like mustard yellow house, because she was so sucked into whatever this house had on her that she did not want to be that far from it to where she couldn't see it. And there'd be points where she would be just driving and sitting at the top of her driveway. And finally my dad had to be like, hey, you're kind of taking this a little far. We need you to go home. But she just wanted to make sure her house was okay. So it freaked us out, like as kids, you know. And finally, my dad and like a bunch of his friends, they were all over playing Trivial Pursuit. They had like family game night, and they were all talking about it. And the gal actually went crazy from the house, they said, to where she was normal until they moved in there, and then something started taking her over. And she wouldn't leave her kitchen, thought where she sat, and she started being abusive and verbal towards her husband. And they were very soft-spoken elderly people. And so she would start just treating him really illy or make him stay away from her. And then she just blacked out every window in the house, telling him that something had told her to block out all the sun in this house and keep everybody out of their house. And so he'd be coming home from working on the farm at night, and she had all the windows blacked out. And he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, we need to keep everybody out. Whatever's in here wants me to stay in here. Keep us inside. No light, nothing. And so he was like, what is going on with you? Like, he thought maybe she's getting dementia or something was going on with her, like, not like psychologically, but like maybe illness wise. So he was trying to tie ends to what was wrong with his wife. And then when she started getting verbal and crazy, and then she wasn't eating or drinking for days at a time, he finally took her to the hospital and was like, hey, something's going on in my life. I don't know if she's getting dementia or, you know, Alzheimer's, something. Like, I need some kind of answers. But as soon as they would get off that property, and even a quarter mile down the road, she would start talking perfectly fine, and her eyes would light back up to where she was at. And so he was like, what in the hell is going on here? And so when they brought it back, their kids started coming over and being like, what is wrong with mom? You know, because they were growing up, didn't live in the area anymore. But when they'd come there, they were confused why their mom was acting crazy. And so they finally got their mom to get out of that house. And that's when the farmhand called my grandpa and was like, hey, we can't live here anymore. There's something going on with this house. Something is wrong with my wife. For her well-being, I need to get her off this property. So he calls my mom and is like, here you go. Come to this crazy place, and you guys take it over. And my dad's eyes lit up because I remember being excited, farming, farmland. He always wanted to do it. I mean, he grew up in California. So being with animals and running cows and having a farm, he was like, yep, we'll take it, you know. So we get there, and I remember the farmhand, I'm so trying hard not to say his name, was telling my dad, hey, there's certain things at night you need to be careful of. The gates will open on their own. Cows will get out. There's been stuff that's happened. And he said, but absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts. You need to keep your kids out of that orchard and out of that windbreak. And my dad was like, okay. And he was like, well, there's something in there that has come around our property that has killed one of our dogs. And we've heard it outside of our windows. And he said it's tall enough that he could see whatever it was, that it's deer or something go by the window. And these farmhouse windows were easily 8 to 10 feet up off of the ground, depending on where you were at in the house. And my dad was like, whatever, you know, I'm not going to believe this crap. Because he thought he was mad. He was losing his property. So he thought he was trying to scare us off there. So my dad.
And actually, he was super happy to be getting out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys move into this house thinking, oh my gosh, this poor people, we're kicking them out. And this guy's like, we got to get out of here. Get the next sucker in here.
He's like, good luck. You guys are screwed, basically.
Okay. It's just the wife that didn't want to leave because it had a hold
on her. An extremely crazy hold to where he thought he was going to put her in like a mental institution when they first left. She was like going down there and watching our house and trying to see what we were doing and making sure we weren't doing upgrades. And I remember when we painted the outside of the house, she had a meltdown to where my dad had to be like, hey, you need to keep your wife out of here. We're trying to upgrade this farmhouse, not downgrade it. And nothing changed inside minus our furniture, you know. And so when my dad and we got all settled in, nothing felt weird. I didn't feel like anything was messing with us. Nothing, because I feel like maybe they were kind of sitting back and feel like what kind of family we were. And not even 6 months in, we had this long, it's called the tack room. If anybody like farms, they know the tack rooms where you keep your horse saddles, all your cattle equipment, everything like that. But leading to that tack room was easily like a 40-yard open face shed where we parked tractors or whatever. So it's all aluminum roofing. And at night, the deep freezer was in there, which was like easily maybe 6 foot long. And it had to have all our beef from the steers we slaughtered. And it's probably, I want to say, walking out the front door at least 30 yards from the front door to that tack room. And for some reason, my dad liked to send us out at night, and all of us would be crying and freaking out. So he would get straws, and we'd all have to pull a straw who was going to go get the steak or the hamburger or whatever for that night.
Or be the steak or hamburger?
Yeah, I did it every freaking time. I was so mad. And sometimes when my little sister would get it, I would just go because she was just little, and she would just cry the whole time. So I'm like, screw it, I'll go. And so it was gravel all the way to there. And we had a padlock on it because we've been having problems with other people's farmhands getting on people's property and stealing their stuff to sell it. And so there was a padlock, so I'd always have the key ready because when I got to that door, I wanted it in, unlocked, and get in there. And I remember going out that night, and my dog Max, he was a griffin. He always went with me. And before I got to the edge of the grass to start touching that gravel, he backed up and got away from me. And I'm like turning around, like, what are you doing? Come on, Max, let's go. And I just remember Dad being like, hurry up, you know. And I'm like, oh my God, why does my dog not want to go, you know? And I remember hearing about the coyotes. So I start stepping on the gravel, and I just remember hearing like the tin on the roof kind of creak. And I was just like, oh my God. So I start going faster. And at that point, somebody told me to run, which was probably a horrible idea. It's a predator. You're not supposed to do that. So I booked it to the door, got the key in the padlock, unlocked it, shut the door behind me, and I heard the gravel slide up and hit the door. And I just sat there and jumped back, and I locked it, and I was like looking around. I was like, what was that? Like it was big. And I was like, maybe it was my dog trying to catch up to me to get in the door. And I was like, I didn't want to open the door because wherever it was, I could hear it breathing. And I was like, that's not my dog. So I started freaking out, and we have another side to the tack room. It's this huge wood sliding door. And I'm like, oh no, what if somebody didn't put the padlock on that? So I start running through the tack room to go back there and slide it shut and slam the padlock on. Whatever was there within seconds of me leaving that spot to the other end, and the gravel, I could hear it moving around. And at that point, I heard something just thud on the aluminum roof. And I remember just jumping and like started crying because I was like, what is this? Like, nobody, my dad or my brothers out here messing with me. Nobody can jump up 8 feet onto a roof like that. So it's crinkling and just walking heavy. And I'm coming back into the main part where the freezer is. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get the hell out of this place without dying because I don't know what I'm dealing with. And I kept looking at the deep freezer like I might have to just get in the deep freezer and hide if it gets in here, hoping it doesn't find me.
Jeez, and that's a terrible.
Yeah. So, and I started crying, and I remember when I heard it jump down, I felt it, and like I don't know if you ever seen those like horror movies where tunnel visions in on you, like coming towards you, and you're like that fear hits, like, whoa, it's here, and it just like tunneled in, and my hearing went all like I jumped in the pool without like I plugged my nose weird. It just got all like combobulated, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I started getting sick because I was so scared. And I saw it start going up the cattle chute. And there's 6 windows, and then I could see it walking, then it would be brick, and then the next window. And all I saw was shoulder, and it was hairy. And I was like, there's no freaking way. And so the cattle chute wraps back around the front of the tack room, and there's 2 other windows that lead up the cattle chute. And as soon as it got up that cattle chute, all I could see was arm and elbow. That's how tall it was. And I was like starting to cry and freak out. And I was like, my dad has to be wondering where I'm at. And this is feeling like 2 hours when it's only been 5 minutes. And finally, I hear my dog bark, and my dad's like pounding on the door, like very crazy. Open the door, Lindsay, open the door. So I opened it. He comes flying in, and he's got his 357. And he's like, what was that? And I said, Dad, I don't know, but it's big. And I was like crying. So he was like holding me, and he was like, we got to get out of here, but I need you to listen to me. I need you to get ahead of me. I'm going to walk backwards to you. And my dad's 6'2". I mean, he played rugby. My dad's huge, just arm, hand, just muscle, solid 200 plus. He's not a pansy in any way. And when I knew he was scared, that's what scared me, because I knew if my dad was scared, I should be scared. And so he opens the door, kind of looks out, and he kept looking up, and I knew he saw it. And next thing you know, we hear a bunch of branches and shrub breaking off into the orchard. And he was like, Kate, we're going. And we get going, and I could hear whatever it was just go off into the windbreak, but I could hear everything breaking from that point on. I took off running, and my dad was like right behind me. And we lived on a farm. You don't lock your front door. You don't lock your doors. Everybody's welcome. And as soon as we got in the house, my mom saw how scared he was. She was like, what in the hell's going on? And my dad was like, I don't know what was out there. It might have been a pack of coyotes. And I remember looking at him and be like, on 2 legs, running on top of the tack room, Dad, like, come on. And I was like, it was not. It was a werewolf. And my mom's like, no more silver bullet for you, or like American Werewolf in London, because they thought I maybe got that image in my head from that. And so I was like, Mom, it was on 2 legs. And I was like crying so hard. And my dad ended up blocking the front door, putting something behind that, then closing this door in between the mudroom and there. And then he went and hurry up and shut the other door and locked it. We have 2 huge bay windows, so whatever was out there, if it wanted to come in, it's going to come in. And he stayed up all night, and I could tell he was terrified. But I know whatever I saw was not a coyote. It was over 7 foot tall, and I could see its muscle in its arm, its bone structure, claw, like it was tall. And it definitely, I think, had ill intentions for me if my dad would not have been out there. And the guy that owned the house before us had told my dad there's something out there that is not of human nature. And my dad now, like after that, we'd go out to check cows, shotgun. I would have a shotgun, he'd have his 357. So whatever that was, I don't know. But I know there was a lot of people that were terrified to be even outside my house at night. Friends would come over. There's something breathing outside your window last night. I'm like, what? And the windows are, like I said, 8 to 10 feet off the ground, depending on what room you're in. And so it was terrifying. And from there on out, we did not go outside at night. We weren't going to test the waters. And checking cows, no, coyotes wouldn't even come near our cows because whatever was there was scaring them off. Like, it was wild. So
did the cows and stuff act weird?
They would just stay inside the barn shed. It was an open shed cover, and they would all be in there. And there was easily over 70 to 80 of them, and there was definitely that room in there, and they would just double stack in front of each other. And we'd go out there sometimes, and they'd have them all with their back ends, with their babies in a circle, protecting them from whatever was out there, because usually when coyotes come, they're stupid, but they're not that stupid to go into a herd of cows.
Yeah.
Because they stand rear end to rear end in a huge circle with all their little newborns in it, and they would all just keep watch. So nothing ever attacked them. We had a newborn disappear one time, but we don't know where it went. We think somebody either stole it or it got drug off because the mom died giving birth and we didn't know, and the baby was just gone.
Okay.
But yeah, that place is definitely, and now there's no windbreak. The guy that bought it trashed the land. So whatever was out there, I can guarantee you definitely moved on because it has nowhere to hide at this point. So it's not the same property as it was when I was little. It's destroyed. It's depressing.
And when we were talking before, you said that you went back to your dad here recently and said, okay, right? I mean, what was that conversation like about that night?
Well, he kind of sat there because he's, I think he just doesn't want to admit it because it's one of those things. You don't want to believe in something that shouldn't exist. And my nickname's Iggy. And so he'd be like, well, Ig, we need to, I couldn't sit there and be like, I saw all this stuff and then you guys be scared or not feel safe. And I told him, I was like, I know what I saw, and it was at our house multiple times. Our dog, Yo, our border collie cattle dog, he would stay in his house, but it never bothered any other animals. It didn't kill any of them, which is kind of a good sign, I guess, from what my Native American friend said, is it wasn't there ill intention wise. It was just kind of there to protect something. And I was like, what though? So that's why I want to do more of an in-depth investigation on what that land actually has. Because if there's something more on that land that I know about, I want to know. Because they said it was acting like more of a protector than it was out to kill me or something. It could have killed me. It could have killed us 100 times out there, But it didn't leave us alone. And there's always a lot of paranormal stuff that happened out there. And our neighbor up the road, he was a multimillionaire, and he had probably 9 Doberman pinschers because he said he wasn't going to let whatever came on his property one night ever come back there. So he had all of these Doberman pinschers, huge metal gates and fences around his property. And he was like, I can't tell you what it is, but I'm going to tell you it's not good. And so his Doberman pinschers were his little security system. Like, you didn't go up there without letting them know you were coming. Dogs would have shredded you.
I wonder if there is like an Indian burial ground or mound somewhere there on the property that maybe you guys didn't see, or maybe it was hidden in the windbreak. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the windbreak was hiding it. And that's what this thing was protecting and keeping people away from. And because it's crazy when you hear people describe these things, and you're like, if it wants to just like something 7-8 feet couldn't rip the door open.
Yeah.
You know?
Could have got to me. That's why I looked at that deep freezer, and it's still there because I have video footage of it. I'm like, holy crap, this thing's easily 25 years old, and it's covered in dirt and stuff. Like, they don't use it. But that was my first thought, is I need to jump in here and hide because maybe it won't be able to smell me. But then I'm like, then all the meat's in here. Well, that's a dumb idea, Like, and being this young, my mind was way more advanced, I feel like, than a normal 9-year-old would have been like. Probably would have taken off running out the door and been like, oh, hopefully I make it to the house. But my dad knew something was wrong, and when he got out there and I saw the fear in his eyes, I'm like looking up at him because he's huge, and when he's scared, I'm scared. And That orchard was old, and the apricot tree was easily probably almost 6 foot around, and it was the oldest tree
Oh,
there.
wow.
And I remember the psychic that came out was saying there was something tied to that tree. So I was like, maybe, somebody got buried under it, or we're not aware of the situations of what this land used to be. So I'm definitely going to look into it and investigate it, because I always tell everybody, if I won the lotto, I'd go buy that land back. They're like, you are insane. Like, why would you do that? Like, something's wrong with your house, that property. I would still do it though, I think, to be honest. I just
Yeah,
curiosity.
you want answers. I mean, you want to see what it was. So, okay, so that's terrifying enough. Holy
I didn't
smoke.
go outside at night anymore, and going to check cows, he'd make me get out to unlock the gate, so he could drive the pickup through. And I'm sitting there like, I'm gonna be dog meat here in a minute. Like, I was so paranoid, but I knew if the cows were acting weird, I wasn't getting out. But yeah, he'd make me get out and be like, go unlock the gate. I'm like, son of a, oh my God, snow, rain, anything. Get through it, hurry, lock it, run, jump back in the truck. So it definitely affected me, and kind of made my, like, not obsession, but I'm definitely afraid of werewolves still. And I know people are like, they don't exist. I'm like, they do.
Well, I think
Not
that's
like,
probably I think it's a good way to go through life, being afraid of werewolves.
I know. And I was like, oh God, you guys want to go out there and hang out with it? You can. You might not come back in one piece, but yeah, I've,
Okay, so let's get to the house then. So, what happened once you guys moved into the house? Did the thing or the entity or whatever that had the hold on the lady, did it get attach itself to anybody in your guys' house?
so there was so many different types of entities in that house. It wasn't just one. When I talked to a couple people who've been living in that town forever, and their family before that, like, after everything started happening, I wanted to know, like, because I was starting to see, like, the ghost, and like, I'd be talking to them and go play upstairs in the secret room with them, and my parents were like, you need to stop going in that room. You fall down in between the wall. We're never going to see you again.
So you were
And
actually physically seeing.
yeah, hanging out with them. There was Anna and little Johnny, her brother, it was their brother's sister. And she would get me to go upstairs into the attic and into the secret room, and the door would already be open when I got up there. And like I said, I know it's some little cheap gold latch, but that door you had to physically force open. And they started just hanging out, and I started seeing them around my house first. And then I was like, Mom, there's a little girl that was talking to me outside, And she was like, okay, weirdo. And then the little boy started coming out. He was a little more shy. And I'd be like hanging out with them, and she thought I was a little kid. I had imaginary friends. But I started seeing them and talking. They were physically just talking to me. And she kept leading me up to the attic. And I remember them yelling at us and like, don't go in that room. You're not supposed to be in that room. You guys fall in between the insulation, you're done. You're gonna die. And she was daring me to put my leg down in there. And so I'm a little competitive kid. And so I put my thigh all the way up to my hip down in that insulation. And my mom would start calling me, and I would go back down there, and she's like, what is all over you? And I was like, oh, the insulation. And I'd get beat up. Like, no, you don't go up that, you don't touch that, you don't go in that room. So I'd get my butt spanked. And that's when I was like naive and didn't think they had ill intentions for me. I didn't think they were dark spirits, nothing. I just thought they were little kids trying to play with me. And the more and more I talked about them, and then I went to school and talked about them, which was not a bright idea. So then they started making me go see the counselor and stuff, because they thought with everything that was going on in my house, like, I was like begging for attention basically. And my dad started acting weird about a year into it, and then my mom and him were just not seeing eye to eye. And my dad drank pretty heavily, so did my mom. And so I thought it was just like alcohol induced, But my dad started just not being himself. And so and like, it's a small town. Anything happens in your personal life, it's everybody's now. So they thought I was out reaching for help because of my home life. And again, like, my dad is not was not and will never be the person he was back in that house. There was physical abuse to my mom. There was physical abuse to us. He was not the same person. He was angry all the time. You could literally just spill a small glass of water and you were getting your ass handed to you. And it wasn't good, you know, and that's not who my dad is and or was at the time. And when I was sitting there saying I was seeing ghosts, and they're like, oh, okay, so this is your outreach for help from your family. So it turned into a huge ordeal, and it wasn't. Like, I know what I saw. I still can see certain stuff depending on where I'm at and things that happen, but my mom and dad just got really ugly very quickly, and my mom just started secluding herself to the exact same spot where that gal did before we moved in. She wouldn't move. She would sit there and watch her TV. She'd do crossword puzzles. She wouldn't interact with us and go play outside. She was hardly eating. She would just drink like her beer or wine. She was becoming a completely different person. We didn't know who she was. And my dad was just like, whatever, you know, I don't give a shit, you know, didn't care. And I think the turning point when my dad realized something was wrong with like him and that house is we headed out to the Filer Fairgrounds here. It's a little carnival thing that we go to. And they have payphones still. And we were calling and checking my mom, make sure she's okay. And my dad's like, I got a feeling I need to call your mom. So we headed over to the payphones. And he called her and she was like hysterical, screaming and crying, like, get home now, Steve. I need you. Please get home. I need you. And my dad was like, what's going on? What's going on? She's like, I need you. I was attacked. So my dad throws the phone and we just like beelined out of there. And we got home and my mom had scratches from top to bottom all over her body. On her inside of her arm, she had a full teeth, like mouth bite mark of like a small child on there to where she couldn't do it or she would have to break her arm. And she had blood all over her, scratches down her legs, her ribs were bruised. And my dad was like, what happened? Who was here? What's going on? And so we're all crying because we're like, what happened to my mom? And she finally calms down and was telling him that she thought it was him coming home because she heard cowboy boots walk up to the door. And then the door slowly opened by an unknown entity. And so my dad was like, what's going on? This is not okay. And after that, he finally gave in and was like, give my mom permission to get a hold of the sidekick and come over. And it took my mom weeks to heal from these scratches.
Your audio keeps going out.
Oh no. Parts of them talking about it.
Your audio keeps going out. So we're the last we heard was she took a couple weeks to heal.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he gave her permission to call a psychic.
Yeah, and we got a hold of her, and she had a medium with her, because I mean, I don't know, a lot of people know there is a big difference between the two. And so she brought her with her to help her figure out what's going on with our house. And as soon as they pulled in the driveway, she said, I'm not stepping foot out of this car. I want off this property immediately. She said, there is a dark aura, purple and black around this house. Something is wrong with this house. She's like, I suggest you get the family out of here and have this place cleansed, or just to move. And she made our psychic friend Sarah get her off our property. She wouldn't even get out of the car.
Wow.
She wouldn't come near me. She said, of all people, something's attached to the little blonde one, because I'm actually naturally blonde. She's like, the little one, there's something attached to her. You need to get her checked out. And so I was like, oh, that's cute, which I didn't understand what was going on. So she refused to step on the property, and she just bounced. And within probably 2 days after them being there, we pissed something off. Stuff was moving, stuff was getting slammed. My mom got a pin thrown at her. There was a dark figure that would just stand in the corner of the dining room and stare at her. There was little kids' voices calling her mama. And we'd be clear down at the pond playing, and she would be thinking it's us calling her, and really it was whatever entities were there. And the psychic had told her that the mom had murdered the kids.
Can you see the lights in my office are flickering on and off?
Yeah. I'm sorry. What is happening? I'm sorry.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
They just don't like me talking about it. They really don't.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
And I'm surprised it's not getting weird in here, to be honest.
So for those
but the mom supposedly killed her 2 kids because she went crazy because of the house. What the psychic told us from what she picked up from the top of the driveway is the house made the mom pretty much Amityville horrid, killed her 2 kids, and then she had her mom living there and the grandma. I didn't know about this until my brother started seeing her standing at the foot of his bed. So it was pretty wild. Like my brother is Amby when it came to this stuff. He would cry hysterically, freak out, and go lay with my mom and dad. But supposedly she killed the two kids on the property, and then she harmed herself. So that's where that whole negative energy stemmed from, and that's why we think that they might have attacked my mom, is because they didn't like the mother figure. Like, you took our lives, lives. Maybe that's why they were attacking her, or it was just whatever entity was there wanted to run her off.
So there was a dark energy there that then, so the dark energy caused the mom to kill the kids.
Yep.
And so then the kids, you believe, is what attacked your mom.
And I mean, I don't know, because I do believe a demon can make itself do whatever it wants. And it coming off of a child, I feel like maybe it looks not as bad. But I feel like whatever was there was going to make us see what we wanted to maybe have some empathy for them.
I got you.
But the mom went crazy, supposedly killed the kids, and then the grandma fell down the stairs and died. Which is the stairs that led upstairs to the attic. I never saw the elderly lady. My brother did, all the time, standing at the end of his bed, and he would cry and freak out.
This is just going to freak people out, this light flicker.
I know.
On and off. But there's nothing I can do. I mean, all I can do is get up and turn it off. That's what I can do.
I don't know what's going on. That's why I thought it were like maybe like it was glitching, like your screen.
No, it's the light and ceiling here in the office. And I mean, this is not the first time it's done it when we've been talking about stuff like this. So I won't tell my wife. She's always like, don't. So at what point then did your dad, I mean, did they say, look, we got to get out of this place?
My mom and dad went completely shit. There was no getting along with them. There was over drinking, too much physical abuse between a lot of stuff. There was too much stuff going on around us. And I think the deal breaker for him to get a reality check was there was a ram's head that we picked up out in the mountains because we moved our cattle from Idaho to Nevada, and we put them out to pasture, and then we'd go scoop them up. But you'd have hundreds of other cows. He'd be out there for days, just getting all your cows rounded up. You have a certain color of tag, blah, 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 blah. Then we bring him back to Idaho. Well, he found this ram's head. And I was like, no. Like, Dad, no. And it still kind of had some of its flesh on it. And so he's like, no. Put it on his saddle, took it home. In our living room, where this wood mantle was easily 12 foot up in the air. Probably 5 foot in front of that is where our couch would sit. So the back was here. The mantle was easily 12 feet there. He had it with rope mounted on those old school metal hooks. They're not going anywhere. They're not just going to fail. The pool was completely cleaned off. It wasn't heavy. I mean, it was because of the orange. But I had this orange cat named Sammy, and he crawled in front of me and was like acting like his leg was hurt. And I was the only one sitting on this leather couch. As soon as I leaned off the couch and started petting him, that ram head flew off, hit the back of the couch, hit the wood floor, and his teeth shattered everywhere. And the whole living room was quiet. My dad, my mom, my brother and sister, we were all in there, and all of us just kind of froze, like, what the hell is that? And I turned around and looked at my dad, and he was like, get away from it, get away from it. And he went over there, and it was moving on the floor. It just was spinning. And he stopped, and he was like, had us get out of there. And I was like, Dad, we need to get rid of this, because I feel like anything negative is going to hook to something that it can. But if it would have hit me in the back of the head at the force, it would have, probably would have been knocked out, if not worse. And my cat saved my life because I think it knew what was going to happen. So he was pretending like his leg hurt. I go up to bend down and grab him. As soon as my head was off that couch, it hit the back of the couch, hit the ground straight. And of course, my dad's like, no, the rope failed, the hook failed. And my dad, they're both still there. The rope is still on the head. That failed, it would have fallen straight down, blown off the couch and hit me in the back of the head almost. So all of us were all scared, and my sister was crying. And he goes and gets the head and he takes it out to our shop and puts it in there. And I was like wanting to get rid of it. And I go and visit him in his new house that he got. And he has that freaking ram head sitting in his garage with his teeth replaced, completely bleached, and just sitting there. And I was like, Dad, this is not a good thing to have around. Like, this thing was obviously not a good thing. And, like, after I talked to him about it and told him, do you remember that happening? He was like, yes, I do. But if it would have been 10 years ago, he'd be like, that never happened. The hook failed. It just fell down, bounced off the ridge of the bookcase, and then hit the couch. And now he'll be like, yeah, it legit just flew off the hook, and it was trying to hit me and hurt me. And I don't know why, but I was the center of attention of everything paranormal in that house. And my dad was just like, something's wrong with it. My mom was like, get it out of the house. Get it out. Like, I don't want it in here. Nothing. So it was bad. And I think at that point, that's when he was like, all right, we got to figure something out. And we all built a cabin from the ground up at Magic Reservoir up here. And that's when him and my mom kind of went their separate ways. And he started living up there and taking that over. And my mom stayed in that house till 2005. We sold it and then moved to here in Flynn. And then this house is completely screwed. Like, there's a portal. It's bad. That'll have to be a whole nother show. He's showing you stuff. I feel like it just drew her here, made her pick this house. It's wild. Because downstairs, nobody will go down there. They're terrified of it. I have video. Excuse me. And multiple orbs just coming out of this doorway down there. And I've had experience here of, like, sleep paralysis, not being able to move. I've seen the Grim Reaper, some figure I can't identify. Then my mom has passed away. She was at the foot of my bed in her hospital gown, looking at me terrified that I couldn't move, but I was yelling at the girl that was crawling through the door towards me, and I couldn't move. So this house is another cluster. Like, it just follows me, I think. I don't know.
It sounds like this current house is part 2. Is what it sounds like.
And it is. Like, I had a grown-ass Marine man try to sleep downstairs, and he said there was a shadow figure that stood over him, pushed on his chest. And he came running up and ended up sleeping in my room with me because he was so scared. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, there's this black figure holding me down on your, like, downstairs bed. I got out of there. He called me by my name, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's the basement. There's a lot that goes on down there. Could have told you that, you know. He was grown-ass Marine, and he was terrified and would never come back here again.
I gotta be honest though, that's the oldest trick in the books. Like, yeah. Something's trying to get me downstairs. So I gotta go crawl bed with the hot chick upstairs. You know, I mean,
like, I'm scared. Get the hell out of here.
So we definitely have to revisit this, but let's wrap up this first part and kind of. Like, so you've gone back, so your mom sold that land and it's kind of stuck with you. Like, what, I mean, obviously all the stuff that happened. So as best you can, describe to our listeners your trip back out there recently.
So we had a dart benefit for a friend that died. But he had cancer and came back. So we all went and played darts. I had like 4 beers and I was like, we're going out to the farmhouse. Because I had some guy that I went to school with told me my whole farm had been bulldozed. So I was like devastated and about to cry because I was like, no freaking way. So we drove out there and I got out there and I mean, they've actually cleaned up the land because the guy that actually bought it from my mom was a piece of work. Doesn't own it anymore. I think some other family bought it, took it over. So they cleaned up the land, and it's really pretty now. I mean, it's bare, but it looks good. But as soon as we pulled down that driveway, I was like, stop. I made everybody else stay in the car and stay at the top of the driveway because I was like, no, I don't want anything that's around here to come home with us or attached to anybody here that might be like weak-minded or susceptible to being like in trouble. So when I got all the way out there, I was happy because 7 years before that, when I went and visited, it was trash. And as soon as I entered that house, the gentleman that was with me was like, mm-mm, mm-mm. And I was like, what's up? Hey, no, I don't have to enter if you don't want me to. He was like, something went behind you into the mud room. And I turned around and I was like a kid? Because his little shelfie dog wouldn't leave me alone. I thought maybe he thought it was his dog, and he said, no, old man ran past you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, do you mind if I just get going? Can I take a couple of videos? Anything you don't want me to video, I won't. And he was just like, no, you need to just hurry to something. He said he saw something. And when I went to go to the downstairs door, and that's when I was like, why is this blocked off, man? Because the coal chute, that whole house is only heated by coal. And I swear that's how I got in such good shape at a young age, is bucking hay and pulling that coal auger. It's heavy. Mm-hmm. And that's how it heated the whole house. And he wouldn't let me go down that door. It was blocked off. And then I was like, okay. And he's like, no, we're keeping something down there. Something stays down there. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of confused, but whatever, So I went and did my stuff, went back out, looked at the tin roof where I had that encounter with that creature, and I turned around, he was all putting the pallets and boards up against the outside door that led down to the downstairs where the coal room was. And I was just like, what's going on? And then he was like, no, go down, something down there. And I was like, okay. It was like really, really awkward. And it made me think of like when we had a babysitter because my parents went out, had board game night. She went down to go help fill with the auger, and she turned around and said she saw red eyes looking for the coal chute at her. Oh. And she came screaming upstairs and was freaking out and called my mom and dad. Like, you got to get home now or I'm leaving. She just left us. She just left us and was out of there because she said there were two red eyes that lifted the coal chute wherever they would fill the coal in. It lifted up because it was metal loud. And she said she saw two glowing red eyes looking right at her. And that's when she slammed everything down, let the auger open, everything, and took off. And my dad was just like, where did you go? And she was like, there was something down in your basement. And she never came back and babysat us. But I was just like, what is down in my basement? I need to know. But I didn't want to disrespect them. But leaving there, I've been sick for 3 weeks now. So that following Wednesday, or that Saturday I was there, I got a fever from Monday to Wednesday and was sick. And I'm still like recovering from it. And my friend's like, maybe you shouldn't have gone to the farmhouse. And I was like, I guess, I don't know. Because I don't ever get sick. And so she was like concerned maybe something attached itself to me or it wanted me to get sick. I don't know. But I just thought it was kind of a coincidence that I was just there. Felt amazing in the sign, and now I'm still getting my voice back. So it's wild.
Hey, look, all I know is I've done the last 15 minutes of this interview in the dark.
I know.
So
that's horrible. I'm sorry.
I don't know what. So, but that is, I mean, that's what really got me is when you said, the guy said, hey, look, you can't go downstairs. We've got something down there. And like, is it that they really had something down there, or they just didn't want anybody to go down there and encounter what was down there?
They had because they were very Catholic. They were of Hispanic descent, so they had like two Catholic little, the normal candles you would see with like Mother Mary and stuff on it, by it, and then there was boards across it and straight up, and then outside he didn't have anything like that yet, but there was still stuff sitting in front of that door, like maybe, I don't know, like he was trying to protect whatever, like from coming into their house. And he asked me not to do that, so I didn't. But
wow.
I don't know. I need to go out there and pay for them to go all stay in a hotel room and do an overnight investigation. And I just need to find somebody brave enough to go with me out there because once reality hits, people don't really want to stick around. So.
Trust me, I know some guys. Stacy Brown Jr. If you're listening, if you're listening to this while you're driving around, Lindsay needs your help. out in Idaho.
I'd be totally down.
Hey, those guys from his team would totally be down for a place like this. I that just was right up their alley for sure. So
yeah, I just wish the windbreak was still there because I can guarantee you things would be weird. You'd hear stuff out there all the time, and then I'm just depressed because they took out that orchard because he didn't keep it irrigated. I mean, we'd have to flood it constantly, and the guy that bought it for my mom just didn't give a crap about the house and the land. He just wanted the money and the crops, and so he let the orchard die. But that apricot tree was old, and I can guarantee there's going to be something attached to that. So.
Well, I would tell you, be careful next time, because I know you're.
Yeah, and I'm sick now, so I thought it was kind of a coincidence. And my friend brought it up for Native American. They're like, if something's telling you, don't do it again. And I'm like, I'm going back out there.
Well, I know you're determined. So maybe you can get some people out there that have even more experience and could go try and help you figure out what's going on out there, or what is in the basement or whatever. I just don't go by yourself. Just don't. I
know. That's what I got yelled at about. Like, why would you do that?
Jeez.
I just, you just gotta find stuff out. I mean, our childhood was not easy out there. I mean, I grew up on a farm. It was awesome living experience. You grew up working from the moment you gave up the hay bale, basically. We lived on horseback. It made my dad somebody he was not. And once he got away from that property, you would never think he's the same man. My mom, on the other hand, I don't think she ever really recovered from it. Whatever it is, I think followed us here or drove her to this house I'm in now because she just deteriorated and unfortunately ended up being what took her life. But I just, yeah. And this basement, like, if I get stuff, I'll definitely send it to you. I have EVPs from down there. I have videos. I'm just, what is wrong with you? That's why you're in the dark right now. I'm trying to tell you.
Well, we'll definitely have a part 2 and talk about what's going on in your house, in your current house at some point. Maybe I'll have to change the light bulb. I don't know what's going on here. But Lindsay, thank you for coming on and sharing this stuff. No, it was great. We love having you as a listener, and I don't love that you had to go through all this stuff, but I appreciate the fact that you felt comfortable enough to come on and share it. Yeah. So.
You feel the howler. Thank you very much. I have swam in horse troughs when I was little. That's what we swam in, was the damn horse trough. You have swimming pool.
Okay.
Like in the salt log. Sitting in the horse trough. Oh,
I will let him know. I'll make a note for next week's midweek call. I'll say, hey, one of our listeners
that's awesome.
played in the horse trough, and that might send him on a whole new tangent.
I know. I'm excited. He's so entertaining. He kills me. He made me miss a safety meeting at work, so it's his fault.
Oh, geez.
Everybody just like left, and I'm sitting there still working. Like, where the hell did everybody go? But I was so sucked into the weekday howl. I missed a safety meeting.
He'll appreciate that he made you miss us. So, well, hopefully you feel better soon. And like I said, thanks for coming on and sharing with us, even if I am in the dark.
I know. I'm so sorry about
that. Believe me, everybody else is much better off because of it. So. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.